All around the world, stories of UFOs appearing in the middle of the night, strange signals from outer space, and mysterious ghosts continue to leave people feeling unsettled. Even though science has advanced tremendously, these phenomena still have no clear explanation. Join us as we explore the unanswered mysteries of extraterrestrials and the ghosts that appear around us in today's video. The aliens of Varginha. In early January of 1996, the small town of Varginha lay peacefully nestled among the rolling hills of Minas Gerais in southeastern Brazil. Life here remained as simple as it had always been, a reflection of rural South America, where most of the residents earned their living from sprawling coffee farms that blanketed the slopes. Coffee wasn't just a source of income for each family, it was a way of life, something that gave the region its distinct character. Compared to the bustling cities of Sao Paulo or Rio de Janeiro, Varginha was still little more than a small town, set far from the modern urban centers. In this place, people still called each other by name, and neighbors routinely lent each other a hand during harvest season or festivals. As 1996 began, there was a sense of joy and anticipation in the air. Residents had just finished celebrating the new year, coming together as a community to wish for better days ahead. Laughter, small gatherings, and local festivities filled the streets, reinforcing a deep sense of connection among the townspeople. No one imagined that anything unusual was about to happen, but in just a single night, all that peace would be shattered by a series of strange events no one could have predicted. In the early hours of the 20th of January, 1996, as the entire town of Varginha slept, something strange happened on a farm in the outskirts. The farm belonged to Eurico Rodrigues and his wife, Aurelina Augusta. They were used to waking up whenever they heard odd noises in the night. But this time, the commotion in the livestock pen left both of them more uneasy than usual. The frantic cries of the cows and sheep sounded different, disturbed in a way they'd never heard before. Eurico and Aurelina peered out through the window, trying to spot the cause of the chaos. In that moment, both were left speechless by what they saw. Hanging in the pitch-black sky above their property was a bizarre flying object. It looked like a massive submarine, its surface a cold, metallic gray, and it gave off no light at all. Below, the livestock were clearly affected. The cows and sheep ran in all directions, desperate to find shelter from something completely unfamiliar. The air on the farm was thick with unease, laced with a fear that neither Eurico nor Aurelina could explain. The strange object hovered overhead for about 5 minutes, before suddenly vanishing as mysteriously as it had appeared. After it was over, Eurico and Aurelina simply stared at each other in worry. They considered reporting what they'd seen to the local authorities, but in the end, they decided to keep it secret, afraid of being ridiculed or accused of making it up. No one realized that within a few hours, what they had witnessed would become the center of one of the biggest mysteries their small town had ever experienced. That very afternoon, another strange incident took place on the other side of town. Two sisters, Valkyria and Liliane Silva, along with their close friend Katia Xavier, were walking down a familiar road on their way home. The air was cool and quiet, broken only by the rustle of dry leaves beneath their feet. The three girls chatted as they walked, with no idea that they were about to become witnesses to one of the most extraordinary events of their lives. As the group approached a wall tucked away in the woods, all three suddenly froze. Just 7 meters ahead of them, a strange creature crouched close to the ground. At first, the girls thought it was a wounded animal, but they were wrong. The creature was unnaturally thin and small, with dark, shiny skin that looked as if it was coated in oil. Its head was abnormally large, and its eyes glowed bright red, standing out sharply on its distorted face. In a split second, the creature turned its head, its red eyes locking onto the girls, studying their every move. None of them dared to stay even a second longer. The three screamed and ran through the trees, never once looking back, terrified the creature might chase after them. When they got home, the Silva sisters collapsed at the doorway, sobbing with fear. Their mother was shocked to find her daughters in such a state of panic. Despite her efforts to comfort them, she could not ease their terror. The incident, with all its raw emotion and the lingering fear still etched on the faces of the three girls, quickly spread as gossip throughout the small town. It marked the beginning of a controversy and an obsession that would last for years in Varginha. Within days, newspapers large and small ran headlines about the bizarre events. and Brazil's most popular television show at the time, Fantástico, devoted special coverage to the discovery of extraterrestrial beings in Varginha. The arrival of national media attention turned the story of 3 teenage girls into a nationwide sensation. A sense of suspense and curiosity gripped the entire town. Conversations in coffee shops, on buses, and at the market all circled around the same question. Did aliens really appear in Varginha? People began to reconsider other strange events that had happened in the area, incidents they had previously dismissed as nonsense. Many recalled seeing odd objects in the sky or hearing strange noises late at night, but until now, they'd been too embarrassed to tell anyone. Very quickly, the number of self-identified witnesses multiplied. According to some sources, more than 200 people in Varginha and neighboring areas came forward, claiming to have seen the strange creature or an unidentified flying object near the town around that time. Remarkably, many of the witness accounts shared striking similarities. They described a creature with brown skin, a thin and unusual build, an oversized head, and glowing red eyes. Some even mentioned that the creature had 3 spikes or small lumps protruding from its head, just as Katie Xavier originally described. As the rumors of the creature spread through Varginha, people began to question the role of the authorities. The town was not far from the Tres Corações military base, one of the most important bases in the region. The physical proximity between the incident and the base fueled speculation, and for years, suspicions would linger. Some sources, claiming ties to military or defense personnel, shared stories that only increased public anxiety. They said that at the time of the incident, the Brazilian military, along with local firefighters, had coordinated a plan to capture the strange creature. According to these accounts, the being was apprehended alive and quickly removed from the scene in the dead of night. The rumors kept spreading, even crossing Brazil's borders. Many speculated that after being taken by the military, the mysterious being was transported by special vehicle to Brasilia, and from there, secretly flown to the United States for dissection and research by scientists. None of these stories were ever officially confirmed, but the emergence of tales about the handling of extraterrestrial specimens only fueled the curiosity of not just Varginha's residents, but mystery enthusiasts around the world. Not stopping there, some unverified sources claimed that the North American Aerospace Defense Command had sent a warning to the Brazilian authorities about a possible UFO landing in Minas Gerais, just before the Varginha event. If true, this would mean the military was watching all along. Amidst these swirling rumors and questions, a few residents of Varginha refused to stop searching for the truth. Most prominent among them was Uberajara Rodrigues, a longtime town resident and a passionate amateur UFO researcher. With patience and diligence, Uberajara, together with fellow investigator Vittorio Paccaccini, spent months meeting witnesses, collecting stories, and checking every detail of the case. They not only listened to those who experienced the event firsthand, but also tracked down the smallest leads involving the military. Thanks to the tireless efforts of Uberajara and his team, a series of new details gradually came to light, most notably the story that unfolded in February 1996. That month, the Silva family received an unexpected visit. Returning home, the mother, Luisa Silva, found 4 strange men in sharp black suits talking to her daughters. The men introduced themselves as officials, there to ask about the recent incident. They quickly made an unbelievable offer. They proposed a large sum of money in exchange for the girls' complete denial of having ever seen anything strange in the woods that day. To the family's shock, the girls refused without hesitation, insisting that what they saw was real and could not be denied. The mysterious arrival of the 4 men in black only stoked further public suspicion. For many in Varginha, this was not just an attempt at bribery, but evoked the familiar image of the men in black. People began to wonder, was the entire Varginha affair being covered up by the government? Or perhaps by some secret organization with powers beyond the ordinary person's imagination? While many believed the events in Varginha were clear evidence of extraterrestrial visitation, more mundane theories always existed. The most common explanation was that the 3 girls had simply run into a homeless man wandering the woods near Jardim Ander. According to this theory, the man may have suffered from congenital deformities that made his appearance frightening. His odd looks, combined with the dim light and the girls' panic, convinced them they'd encountered something not of this world. Numerous news sites and forums even gave this homeless figure nicknames like Little Luis, with some even publishing supposed photos of him taken in later years. These details kept the controversy alive, with some fiercely defending the witnesses' experiences, while others dismissed them as simple mistakes, or the product of overactive imaginations. The speculation didn't end there. Some members of the public believed the whole affair was nothing more than a ploy to draw attention and boost tourism in the small town. Indeed, since 1996, Varginha had suddenly become a UFO hotspot on the world map. Every year, the town welcomed thousands of curious tourists, UFO researchers, and journalists, all eager to uncover the truth behind the mystery. The pinnacle came in 2004, when Varginha hosted the International UFO Conference, attracting a great number of specialists in the field. More than 20 years have passed since the day Varginha became the center of the world's attention with its story of the strange creature. The once quiet little town among the coffee hills now wears a completely new face. The fame brought by the 1996 event has completely transformed the lives of its people. Varginha is no longer just a distant name on the map. It has become a destination for curious tourists, UFO researchers, and international reporters alike, all hoping to see for themselves the place now called the Roswell of Brazil. The mystery of Lake Baikal. Nestled in southern Siberia, Lake Baikal is a natural wonder that leaves a lasting impression on anyone who hears its name. It isn't just the world's largest freshwater lake by volume, it's also the deepest, with some spots plunging as far as 1,600 meters beneath the surface. Often referred to as the Pearl of Siberia, Baikal has, for centuries, guarded a trove of mysteries that remain unsolved beneath its icy waters. For hundreds of years, stories about Baikal have been woven and passed down through the generations. Local people living along the shores speak of giant monsters lurking in the lake's depths, of sunken trains loaded with treasures yet to be discovered, and of unidentified flying objects that appear and vanish into the Siberian mist. But among all these stories, the one that haunts people most is the tale of the Baikal Lake humanoids. According to legend, these are human-like beings who live on the lakebed, possessing powers and technologies far beyond anything known to mankind. Their mysterious appearances are said to have once so terrified the Soviet military that they sparked one of the most remarkable encounters in modern history. In the summer of 1982, Lake Baikal became the scene of one of the most puzzling events in modern Russian history. At that time, a team of Soviet Navy divers was sent to the lake for training in the extreme cold and depth. At first, everything went according to plan. But within minutes, the entire team found themselves caught up in an encounter beyond anything they could have imagined. While carrying out their mission underwater, the divers suddenly spotted three bizarre creatures swimming toward them. From the very first moment, everyone was stunned by the extraordinary appearance of these beings. The three figures were enormous, estimated to be nearly 3 meters tall, with bodies covered in silvery suits that glistened like mirrors. Stranger still, they carried no breathing apparatus except for transparent helmets. Slowly and calmly, the three mysterious beings drifted away into the darkness of the lake, leaving the divers with nothing but a torrent of unanswered questions. As soon as they resurfaced, the team reported what they had seen to their superiors. Instead of pulling back, a special order was given. 7 people, including an experienced instructor, would return with nets, tasked with capturing at least one of these creatures for further study. Silently, they descended into the deep, their flashlights probing the frigid lakebed. Suddenly, the silver shapes appeared again in the blue depths. This time, tension gripped everyone. As one instructor moved closer, ready to cast the net, one of the lake humanoids unexpectedly drew a small device from its side and aimed it at the divers. In an instant, the water around the group turned into a violent vortex. The powerful current shot them to the surface, leaving all of them in critical danger from decompression sickness. Despite efforts to save them, 3 of the 7 did not survive. The 4 who lived carried with them harrowing memories and an incredible story about the Baikal Lake humanoids. What's especially striking is that after this dramatic event in 1982, there is almost no official documentation of any response from Soviet authorities. No one knows whether they continued their investigation in secret or whether underwater training in Baikal was ever suspended. Yet, the story of the Baikal Lake humanoids is just one among countless strange phenomena recorded in this region. Over the decades, those who have worked or studied at Baikal have repeatedly reported incidents that modern science still cannot explain. Chief among them are the numerous accounts involving scientific submarines. There have been times when research teams have reported picking up strange signals or seeing mysterious lights coming from deep within the lake at depths where no ordinary equipment can function. Occasionally, monitoring devices recorded unidentified movements or communication systems between submersibles suffered inexplicable interference. Each event added another piece to the still unfinished puzzle of Baikal's mysteries. It seems that the deeper one ventures into the lake, the more one realizes how much of a stranger mankind is in a vast and complex world beyond our imagination. Baikal not only guards secrets of nature and unique forms of life, but also conceals phenomena that defy all human understanding. Alongside legends of lake monsters and bizarre creatures from the depths, Lake Baikal is also famous for its stories of unidentified flying objects. These aren't just tales born of imagination or rumor. They've been documented in the accounts of credible witnesses, from experienced divers to local residents living near the lake. On certain summer nights, when Baikal's surface is as still as glass, people have witnessed mysterious beams of light moving across the sky, then plunging straight into the lake. Renowned diving instructor Alexei Chulin once recounted an unforgettable experience. While rowing with his students, he spotted a glowing red orb flashing in the distance. It hovered just above the water, then suddenly dove down, casting a crimson light across the water below, before shooting back up into the night sky and vanishing without a trace. The sight left Chulin and everyone present deeply shaken. This was not an isolated incident. Many have witnessed such strange events. Sergei Kitch, a local resident, along with his son, once saw two orange orbs rise and fall as if playing above the lake. After a few minutes of bizarre movement, both orbs simultaneously plunged straight into Baikal and disappeared. These inexplicable events at Lake Baikal have inspired many theories about their true origins. One popular idea is that these unidentified flying objects may not have come from distant space at all, but from the depths of Baikal itself. According to this theory, there could be mysterious civilizations beneath the lake that humanity has yet to discover, or perhaps entire species that have inhabited these waters for centuries before man ever came to explore them. Some researchers have even suggested that if extraterrestrial visitors truly exist, they might have chosen Lake Baikal as the perfect place to hide. The water not only conceals their presence, but could serve as a vital energy source for their advanced technology. However, under the tight information control of the Soviet era, it is extremely difficult to verify the truth behind these bizarre tales. Many believe the Baikal humanoid incident was simply the result of decompression sickness from diving, a story that was embellished over time to explain the mysterious and sudden deaths of the divers. And yet, despite these skeptical explanations, Lake Baikal continues to generate new witnesses and stories about lake humanoids and strange flying objects. All of this ensures that the shroud of mystery around Baikal remains very much alive, making it not only a destination for scientists, but an endless source of fascination for anyone captivated by the world's unanswered mysteries. The mystery of the grinning man. As children, every one of us has experienced that mixture of curiosity and anxiety about the world around us. We could spend hours playing with friends beneath the daytime sun, but when night fell, everything changed. The spaces around our homes grew quieter. Darkness crept into every corner, and our young minds would start to imagine mysteries no one could explain. In childhood, we all heard stories about strange creatures that grown-ups called the bogeyman. Every town, every village had its own local legends, stories of odd things that happened when night descended, tales that sometimes lingered in our minds long into adulthood. Some people grew up afraid to walk past the abandoned house at the end of the street, a place no one dared approach at night. Others recalled seeing a silent figure hiding among the trees at the forest's edge, or some shapeless creature that appeared only on stormy nights out on the empty fields. Sometimes, just a strange sound in the middle of the night was enough to make us shiver, every step toward home charged with an inexplicable tension. These are the memories most people share from childhood, even if, as we grow up, we're taught that monsters aren't real. But for decades, despite the progress of science and mankind's ever-expanding grasp of the universe's mysteries, stories of strange creatures continue to surface, stories that defy easy explanation. In North America, many have claimed to see Bigfoot roaming deep in the forests. In wild, remote regions, legends of the Wendigo are still passed down from generation to generation. Amid all those chilling tales, there is one figure whose very name is enough to send a shiver down your spine. He is the Grinning Man, a being who does not simply appear and vanish in a moment, but is said to quietly step into people's private worlds. More than a few witnesses have claimed to see him standing in the dark corner of a room, or even watching silently as they slept. It is this sudden, inexplicable presence that has made the Grinning Man one of the most unsettling mysteries humanity has ever faced. Unlike monsters from fairy tales, the Grinning Man possesses an appearance that is both familiar and entirely alien. Those who have seen him agree that he is much taller than an ordinary person, estimated at nearly 7 feet. But his build isn't the frail, gaunt frame you might expect from such tales. Instead, he has broad shoulders, muscular arms, and an overall sense of intimidating strength. Standing before him, many feel smaller than they've ever felt in their lives. But what makes the deepest impression is the Grinning Man's face. His eyes are small, round, and most disturbingly, set unusually far apart on a hairless head. Between his eyes is a low, almost emotionless nose. There seems to be no sign of life, or even a flicker of hope in those features. People often say they could find nothing human, nothing warm, in his cold, empty gaze. He is always dressed in a tight-fitting bodysuit that shines as if covered in metallic foil. The suit accentuates every muscle and contour, only adding to the sense of unreality he exudes. Some witnesses say that when streetlights or window lamps hit his outfit, he seems more like a being from another world, something that defies normal explanation. But it is his smile that haunts people most. It is not a friendly grin, not the joy of a person who has seen something good. The Grinning Man's mouth is stretched in a wide, unnatural smile, one that dominates his entire face. Yet in those small, cold eyes there is no emotion at all. People say only his mouth smiles, never his eyes. That smile feels like a silent threat, a sign that something terrible is about to happen, leaving anyone who faces him frozen with fear and powerless before a presence that is simply not human. The story begins on an autumn evening in 1966, when 2 boys, Martin Munoz and James Yanchitis, were walking home after a movie. That night, the city of Elizabeth was shrouded in its usual darkness. To shorten their trip, the boys decided to cut through the underpass beneath the New Jersey Turnpike, a place that felt even colder and lonelier at night. Above them, cars roared by non-stop, but down below, only the dim glow of streetlights lit their path among the endless shadows. The air under the bridge felt thick, filled only with the distant rumble of cars overhead and a growing unease. Both Martin and James had heard that earlier that evening, a woman in town had been chased by a stranger in a green suit. Even as they tried to shrug it off, the fear seemed to grow with every step along that dark, empty road. As the boys neared the end of the underpass, James suddenly spotted a man standing in the bushes behind the iron fence. He nudged Martin and whispered, "Who is that?" Martin turned to look, and both boys immediately realized that the man before them was unlike anyone they had ever seen. He was enormous, powerfully built, and dressed in a shiny green suit. Most striking of all was the way the man stared, absolutely focused on a house across the street about 200 yards away. At first, he didn't seem to notice the boys, but after a few moments, he slowly turned his face toward them. Martin and James both felt a chill run down their spines as they saw his face, a face so unnatural they could hardly describe it. What stood out most was his impossibly wide, eerie smile. Without another thought, both boys turned and ran. Even after they got home, the terror lingered, and the image of that strange being haunted their thoughts every time they closed their eyes. A few days later, the story caught the attention of John Keel, a well-known writer and UFO researcher. He interviewed each boy separately, and, remarkably, Martin and James gave identical descriptions, down to the time, place, and appearance of the being they had encountered. What's more, on the night of the sighting, a UFO had been reported in the nearby area, prompting many to connect the two mysteries. Thanks to this, the tale of the Grinning Man was no longer just a baseless rumor, but quickly became one of the great enigmas of the era. The story did not end there. In the final months of 1966, a series of even stranger tales emerged. In the quiet town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, the Lilly family began to experience a string of bizarre events. Household objects sometimes moved inexplicably, a glass falling off a shelf, books scattered across the floor, doors would slam shut in the night, even when the breeze outside was gentle, and strange noises echoed from every room, startling everyone in the family. As if that weren't enough, mysterious lights often appeared in the sky above their house, as though something unearthly was watching them from afar. The Lilleys could find no explanation, but each person in the family felt an ever-growing sense of unease. Night after night, they were awakened by sounds without a clear source, and the feeling that a stranger was always lurking nearby. The climax came on a bitter December night. Linda, Lily, the youngest daughter, was awakened at 1:45 a.m. by a strange noise in her room. Opening her eyes in the darkness, she immediately sensed something was wrong. At the foot of her bed stood a tall man, staring at her. Linda realized instantly that he was unlike anyone she had ever seen. His face was split by a huge, menacing grin, a smile so terrifying it sent a wave of cold through her body. Panic took hold, and Linda dove under her blanket, heart pounding in her chest, praying that if she couldn't see him, he would vanish. After what felt like an eternity, she finally mustered the courage to peek out. The man was gone. Only silence remained, as if nothing had ever happened. Though she was never physically harmed, the nightmare left a deep scar on Linda's soul. For weeks afterward, she refused to sleep in her own room, the fear returning every time night fell. Even more strangely, after Linda's encounter with the grinning man, all supernatural disturbances in the house abruptly ceased. The house was quiet again, but the memory of that night and of the grinning stranger would haunt Linda forever. Another story came from a November night in 1972, in the outskirts of Dunkeld, Scotland. The modest home of Mary Elizabeth McRae and her husband sat on the edge of the village, surrounded by peace and open space. For Mary, that quiet always meant safety. She and her husband had settled into a tranquil routine after their children left home. But within that calm, Mary was about to experience something that would change her life forever. That night, Mary fell asleep as usual. Around midnight, however, she was awakened by an odd noise somewhere in the room. At first, she thought it was only the wind. But as she tried to sit up, Mary was horrified to discover she could not move any part of her body. She had never experienced anything like this before, not knowing it would later be called sleep paralysis. Struggling to open her eyes, Mary looked toward the window. In the faint light of night, she realized something was wrong. The curtains she always drew tight before bed were now wide open. And in that moment, she saw a strange face pressed against the glass. Its black, empty eyes seemed to pierce right into her mind, while on its lips was a twisted, malicious smile. Mary couldn't look away, feeling as if she were hypnotized, helpless before the creature's gaze. Her terror grew until everything faded to black and she remembered nothing else. The next morning, she woke up feeling weak and suffering from a pounding headache that lasted for days, with no explanation. Though Mary continued to live in the same house, the memory of that night, of the face at the window, never faded. The fear stayed with her for the rest of her life. The deeper you go into the stories of the grinning man, the more questions arise. What exactly is this being? When people compare stories of the grinning man to other famous supernatural phenomena, many notice strange similarities to figures known as the Men in Black. These are mysterious men in black suits who appear after UFO sightings. They are described as cold, expressionless, with lifeless faces and, notably, unsettling twisted smiles that inspire terror in all who see them. In many cases, witnesses describe the men in black as if they are not fully human, but something else wearing a human disguise. Some even insist their eyes are pitch black and their behavior so strange it defies understanding. More than that, people who have claimed to be abducted by UFOs often say they encountered a being with the same appearance and mannerisms as the grinning man. In many accounts, the name Indrid Cold comes up again and again. The first to mention it was Woodrow Derenberger, who claimed that Indrid Cold approached and spoke to him after a UFO appeared on the highway in West Virginia. Derenberger was not alone. In 1978, in Italy, a man named Pier Fortunato Zanfretta also claimed to meet a being who introduced himself as Indrid Cold right before Zanfretta was abducted onto a spaceship. This story drew international attention and was researched by UFO investigators for years. But Derenberger insisted that Indrid Cold didn't just appear once. He claimed the being visited him many times afterward. Derenberger even said Indrid Cold was accompanied by two other beings named Demo Hassan and Carl Ardo. According to Derenberger's wife, she too saw these beings and believed they meant no good for humanity. Some bold and controversial researchers have even theorized that the Grinning Man, Indrid Cold, and even the Mothman may simply be different forms of the same shape-shifting extraterrestrial species. This species, they say, can disguise itself as humans, even posing as government officials to conceal secrets about the UFO phenomenon. According to this theory, they do more than watch us. They insert themselves into our lives, affecting people's minds and leaving behind disturbing, unforgettable experiences. Of course, all these theories remain on the border between legend, personal experience, and pure imagination. But whatever your perspective, the similarities in appearance, behavior, the chilling smile, and the recurring names like Indrid Cold have forced people to ask difficult questions about the reality behind the Grinning Man phenomenon. What makes this mystery even harder to dismiss is the surprising consistency in the details, appearance, actions, and the circumstances in which the Grinning Man appears, all matched across witnesses who come from different places, backgrounds, and generations. Yet they all describe essentially the same being. That kind of repetition raises a serious question. Are people all imagining the same thing, or is there truly some unexplained phenomenon behind it? Perhaps the ultimate answer to the Grinning Man will always be the subject of debate. But from any angle, these stories of the being with the unnatural smile will continue to challenge human imagination and courage for generations to come. Who are the shadow people? Throughout human history, there is one strange experience that almost everyone has encountered, if only once in their life. It's that unsettling feeling of being watched, even when you're alone in the familiar comfort of your own home. You might be quietly reading a book, working on some everyday task, or simply sitting and watching television in the evening. Suddenly, a chill crawls up your spine, and you find yourself unable to focus on anything else. Many people have described that, in those moments, they suddenly see a shadow move at the edge of their vision. It's just the smallest flicker, a fleeting shape in the periphery, but it's enough to make you jump. When you turn to look, the shadow has vanished, leaving behind a lingering sense of unease that refuses to fade. What makes this phenomenon so unique is that it recognizes no boundaries. No matter who you are, where you live in the world, or what culture you come from, you can become a witness to these mysterious encounters. From bustling cities to remote villages, from young children to the elderly, from east to west, millions of people have experienced at least one brush with these enigmatic dark figures. People call them shadow people. They appear and disappear as if they were never really there at all, leaving behind nothing but a trail of unanswered questions. Shadow people are often divided into two groups. The first are those elusive figures lurking at the very edge of your sight, sometimes called peepers. They are like voyeurs, always watching you from behind a door or a curtain, appearing just long enough for you to sense them, but never clear enough to see in detail. The feeling of being watched can make people restless or even panicked, yet there is no clear cause to point to. The second group is far more frightening. These are full-bodied apparitions, shadows that appear clearly, right in the center of your vision. They often show up when you are deeply asleep or in a dreamlike state. Some have said they've seen a shadow figure standing at the foot of their bed, leaving them unable to move or cry out. To this day, shadow people remain the subject of countless strange stories whispered around the world. The first story to mention is that of Michael Collis. On a late night in December 2002, 8-year-old Michael was filled with excitement for the holiday season and the gifts he would soon receive. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept waking up, sweating and tossing from side to side, just hoping to find a cooler spot on his little bed. In the darkness, with no clock in sight, Michael guessed it must be well past midnight. His parents had gone to bed long ago, and the whole house was silent, so quiet he could hear their soft snoring from the next room. Thirsty, he reached for the glass of water by his bedside, took a sip, and lay on his back, staring up at the ceiling. He tried to calm himself by thinking about Christmas and the Nintendo GameCube he had been dreaming of for months. He pictured what game he'd play first, and all the titles on his long wish list. That's when a tiny movement by the window to his left caught his eye. The curtain was still open, and right outside was the porch roof, a place where Michael sometimes went to escape his pesky 5-year-old brother. This time, though, he saw nothing clear, only the impression that someone, or something, had just slipped past the window frame. He turned his head to check, but everything was quiet as before. Michael tried to convince himself it was only an illusion from the streetlights reflecting off the tin roof outside, but the feeling wouldn't go away. A few minutes later, Michael noticed that movement again, still in the corner of his eye, and once again, whenever he looked straight at it, there was nothing there but darkness. It happened over and over. Each time he glanced left, the shadow seemed to dissolve into thin air. It was as if something was lurking just out of sight, only present when he wasn't looking directly at it. By the fourth or fifth time, Michael decided not to turn his head anymore. He lay perfectly still, just enough to keep the shape in his peripheral vision. And then he saw it, a tall, thin figure draped in a long cloak with a wide-brimmed hat perched atop its head. In the dim glow from the streetlights, the entire figure was cloaked in shadow. There were no features, only a stark black outline etched against the night sky beyond the porch. Strangely, rather than feeling fear, Michael simply felt annoyed, like someone was disturbing his sleep. After a while, the figure began to move, pacing slowly in front of the window, striding back and forth across the porch like a soldier on patrol. Sometimes the steps were quick, sometimes unnaturally slow, as if it wanted Michael to notice it. The boy's irritation grew. Finally, Michael decided to get up and close the curtain. The moment he drew the curtain shut, he heard hurried footsteps running across the porch roof, and then silence. Peeking one last time through the crack, Michael saw that the porch was empty. There was no trace of the shadow figure anywhere. The next morning, Michael woke up having forgotten everything that had happened in the night. All the strange sensations, all memories of the shadow by the window, were gone from his 8-year-old mind. It wasn't until many years later, as a college student, that Michael was forced to confront that memory. One day, a friend lent him a book on strange phenomena, with an entire chapter devoted to shadow people. When he read the description of the Hat Man, a shadow in a long cloak and wide-brimmed hat appearing at night, Michael felt a chill run down his spine. All the memories from that night rushed back, as vivid as if they had happened yesterday. Returning home at the end of the semester, Michael shared his childhood experience with his mother, explaining what he had read about the Hat Man. Before Michael could ask if anything strange had happened in the family that year, his mother quietly asked, "I wonder if he came for Emily." Michael froze. Emily was his childhood friend from next door, a girl he had forgotten, who died suddenly in her sleep on the 23rd of December that year, just 2 days after the night Michael saw the Hat Man on his porch. What had made Michael forget such a loss? Was it a pain too deep to bear, buried by memory? Or was there something more mysterious behind the Hat Man's appearance that Christmas night? Those questions remain unanswered. But for Michael Collis, that summer night in Brendale became an indelible mark on his soul. Next is the story of the Putney family. Sarah Whitaker never imagined that a story her grandmother told her would stay with her for life. It was the memory of a terrifying night in the Putney family's little house in Cranbrook, Kent, in southern England. The main characters were Sarah's grandparents, Albert and Susan Putney. In their old age, like many elderly couples, the Putneys chose to sleep in separate rooms. It was a habit that made rest easier, but also because Albert suffered from sleep apnea, which caused him to snore loudly and toss and turn at night. Susan was used to quiet nights in her small room, only occasionally stepping out into the hallway to use the bathroom. One night in 2013, as darkness covered the small town of Cranbrook, Susan woke up with the urge to use the restroom. Everything was so quiet, only the ticking of the clock and the faintest sounds drifting in from the garden. On her way back to bed, she paused by Albert's door, as she always did, listening for his familiar snores, always worried about his health. But that night, something was different. Instead of the usual rhythmic snoring, she heard only shallow, ragged breaths, almost as if he were choking. A sense of dread crept over her, and Susan pressed her ear to the door to listen more closely. In that moment, she realized Albert might be in danger from the sleep apnea that had plagued him for years. Immediately, she opened the door, intending to wake him, but what she saw stopped her dead in her tracks. In the dim light from the window, she saw a dense, faceless black shadow, just a vague outline of a head and shoulders, sitting on Albert's chest. It was not human, nor did it resemble any ghost she had ever imagined. Susan stood frozen, paralyzed, unable to move or even call out. The shadow turned its head toward her, as if aware of her presence. In that moment, she felt the entire room fill with cold and darkness. Suddenly, the shadow vanished into thin air, leaving no trace. The entire episode lasted only a few seconds, but it left a scar on her memory for the rest of her life. After it was over, Susan quietly walked over to Albert and gently shook him awake to check on him. He was still breathing, though a bit exhausted and confused to be awakened in the middle of the night. She never told anyone, not even Albert, what she had witnessed, afraid people would dismiss it as imagination or delusion. It wasn't until years later, in a conversation with her granddaughter Sarah, that she finally shared everything. For Sarah, her grandmother's account was more than just a scary ghost story. It was living proof of mysteries that science still cannot explain. At first glance, stories about shadow people are easy to dismiss as the product of imagination or restless dreams in the night. But when you gather thousands of reports from all over the world, a strange pattern emerges. These experiences are eerily similar, no matter who describes them. Whether it's a boy in Australia or an elderly woman in England, the sensations they recount are the same. It's a lingering terror that's hard to shake, especially when those involved swear they were completely awake and lucid during the experience. Yet, nearly all these accounts remain anecdotal. Physical evidence is almost non-existent. The rare photos or videos of shadow people are often dismissed as hoaxes or technical glitches. This only thickens the veil of mystery, making the stories even more haunting and harder to verify than ever. In light of these strange events, many theories have been put forth to explain the true nature of shadow people. First are spiritual beliefs, present in every culture since ancient times. According to these, shadow people may be the souls of the dead, unable to move on, forever lingering in this world, weighed down by sadness and resentment. Some even believe they are negative entities, bringing bad luck or even danger to the living. But not everyone believes in ghosts or the supernatural. Modern scientists have tried to explain the shadow people phenomenon using biological and physical theories. Some research suggests that extremely low-frequency electromagnetic waves can directly affect the brain, particularly the regions that process emotions and visual perception. When people are exposed to these frequencies, they are more prone to fear, anxiety, or even to seeing phantom images at the edge of their vision. Additionally, the human brain is remarkably good at filling in missing information, especially in darkness or when exhausted. So those fleeting movements in the periphery can easily be transformed into the image of a shadowy figure. But science doesn't always have the answer. There are plenty of cases in which not just one person, but entire families, even pets, have seen these mysterious apparitions at the same time. Bolder theories have also emerged. Some paranormal researchers suggest that these shadows might be visitors from parallel dimensions who accidentally slip into our world when the boundaries between realities thin. Others have connected the phenomenon to UFOs and aliens, especially since, in many cases, witnesses say they saw shadow figures before or after experiencing other strange events, like alien abductions. Curiously, the image of the Hat Man reminds many people of the mysterious Men in Black, those enigmatic figures who so often appear in UFO stories and unexplained mysteries. Whether they are ghosts, hallucinations, or travelers from another dimension, shadow people remain one of the greatest mysteries humanity has ever faced. The truth behind those shadows is something no one has yet been able to confirm. But no matter their origin, they continue to haunt and intrigue us, a constant reminder that our world still holds countless secrets beyond the reach of science and ordinary experience. The shocking discovery in the California forest. In early June of 1978, a group of motorcyclists pulled over on a lonely mountain road. They had been riding all day, and as late afternoon set in, the sunlight cast a golden glow through the pine trees. The road was quiet, seldom traveled, with nothing but the sound of wind rustling through the branches and the distant echoes of engines reverberating across the wilderness. When the group decided to turn onto a small path leading to an abandoned Forest Service camp, none of them realized they were about to witness something that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The moment they stopped, an overpowering, strange stench wafted through the air. At first, they assumed it was the smell of some wild animal carcass, decomposing in the summer heat. But as they all removed their helmets, the discomfort grew even sharper. Some were forced to cover their mouths to keep from gagging. A few suggested they should leave immediately, but curiosity held them back. One of the riders noticed that the window of a large trailer parked on the edge of the site had been smashed, and as he got closer, he realized the door was also unlocked. After a brief discussion, they decided to step inside. At first, it was just the sight of dusty kitchen cabinets and forgotten odds and ends, abandoned by whoever had last used the place. But as they reached the back of the trailer, they froze in horror at the sight before them. On a small bed lay the body of a young man, dead for weeks. None of them grasped the significance of what they had found. The bikers thought they'd simply stumbled on another tragic death in the forest. They didn't realize they had uncovered a key piece in a mystery that had gripped Northern California for months: the disappearance of 5 young men from Yuba City who had left home one night in February and never returned. On the evening of the 24th of February, 1978, the air in Oroville, Northern California, was colder than usual. In the modest kitchen of a small house, 25-year-old Gary Dale Mathias sat at the dinner table with his family. As he ate his stew, a look of excitement played across his face. Tonight was special. Gary and his close friends were heading to Chico to watch a college basketball game, an event they had looked forward to for days. Elsewhere in town, Theodore Earl Weir, the oldest in the group at 32, hurried through dinner with his grandmother before bounding down the stairs with a childlike smile. Ted, as his friends called him, had a gentle soul and a warmth that endeared him to everyone. His greatest joy was the simple pleasure of going to basketball games or joining his friends in everyday activities. Jack Madruga, 29, a former serviceman, owned the Mercury Montego. Jack was the only one with a driver's license and always took on the role of chauffeur for their outings. In the back seat rode Jackie Charles Hewitt, a reserved 24-year-old who struggled with communication and felt most comfortable around Ted Weir, his trusted friend. Their bond was so strong, people rarely saw one without the other. The last member of the group was William Lee Sterling, 27, a gentle soul and deeply religious. Bill rarely left home unless it was for church, basketball, or meetings at the Gateway Rehabilitation Center. The outside world was often confusing and overwhelming for him, but time with friends brought him a simple joy that he cherished. All 5 were members of the Gateway Gators basketball team at the Yuba City Gateway Rehabilitation Center. They weren't just teammates, but close friends, helping one another overcome the challenges of intellectual disabilities and persistent mental health struggles. To their families and the community, each was unique, but on the basketball court, they were one inseparable unit. That evening, the friends prepared for the trip to Chico, a journey that was both for fun and to fuel their passion for basketball. More importantly, it was also preparation for their own big game the following day. As night fell over the winding roads of Northern California, the 5 young men from Yuba City left home, carrying only the simple hopes of a fun night with friends and the thrill of live basketball. The battered bronze Mercury Montego waited outside, and one by one, they climbed in, waving goodbye to their families, with promises to return as soon as the game was over. It was a cold Friday night, but all they felt was excitement and anticipation. They followed Highway 70 toward Chico, the sparse streetlights fading into the deep stillness of pine forests and rolling hills. All the way, their conversation buzzed with talk of tomorrow's game and dreams of making it to the Paralympics, mixed with laughter and the rustle of fresh snack bags. When they arrived, they joined the crowd at California State University, Chico, where the game was held. Later, witnesses confirmed that the 5 friends were indeed at the stadium, blending in with the spectators. After the game ended, around 10 p.m., they didn't head home right away but stopped by a nearby convenience store. A clerk remembered them clearly, carefully picking out candy bars, with no signs of worry or fear on their faces. But from that moment on, it was as if the 5 friends had vanished into thin air. When their families awoke the next morning and found their sons hadn't come home, anxiety crept through every house in Yuba City. Frantic phone calls were exchanged, and every minute that passed with no sign of the boys deepened the dread on that cold winter morning. Realizing something was terribly wrong, the parents quickly called the police. Local authorities understood the gravity of the situation immediately. These 5 men weren't thrill seekers or troublemakers, but responsible, disciplined, and deeply attached to their families. There were no notes, no warnings, and no one could have predicted that, in one night, their lives would split from the familiar path, leaving a community in shock and a mystery that would last for decades. As fear spread through Yuba City, the search began, led by Lieutenant Lance Ayers. With years of experience in Northern California, Ayers knew every member of the group. He'd even attended school with Ted Weir and his brothers. This made the case personal, not just a duty. Initial searches were small, but soon expanded into the surrounding hills, back roads near Chico, and beyond. The families combed through every possible clue, while law enforcement and volunteers scoured the forests. The weather grew harsher, but hope pushed them to keep searching. At night, flashlight beams flickered through the fog, shadows of loved ones waiting for their sons to come home. On the 28th of February, Just 4 days after that fateful night, a crucial discovery brought both hope and confusion. The bronze Mercury Montego was found abandoned on a desolate mountain road in the Plumas National Forest, more than 70 miles northeast of Chico. This road was almost never traveled in winter. When investigators approached the car, they found it in surprisingly good condition. All 4 tires were fine, not stuck or bogged down as some had suspected. The gas tank was nearly full, meaning the car could have gone much farther. Inside, road maps were neatly folded in the glove box. There were no signs of panic or haste. The only odd thing was that the car keys were missing. Despite careful searching in and around the vehicle, no one found them. There was no sign of damage, no blood, no evidence of violence, nothing to suggest theft or a struggle. In early June of 1978, it was that group of motorcyclists, wandering the empty mountain roads, who made the discovery everyone in Yuba City had both hoped for and feared. In the pale evening light, when they stopped at a small ranger cabin deep in the woods, they were immediately hit by the unmistakable, lingering smell of death in the suffocating air. The abandoned trailer sat quietly on the edge of the forest, untouched for months. When the door swung open, a cold, grim scene lay inside. At the back of the trailer, on a narrow bed, was the body of Ted Weir, the oldest of the group. Weir's body was curled under 8 heavy blankets, completely covered, as if he'd been trying to cling to the last traces of warmth in his final weeks. Once a man who weighed nearly 200 pounds, Ted was barely over 90 pounds when he was found, evidence of prolonged exhaustion, starvation, and bitter cold. Strangely, there were no signs he had tried to crawl out of bed or escape, as if he had simply waited, quietly, for the end in utter isolation. What the group discovered became even more puzzling as they checked the trailer. All around Ted's body, in the cupboards and on the floor, were unopened packs of dried food, enough military rations to keep the entire group alive for months. There were boxes of matches, stacks of old newspapers and books, more than enough to start a fire and cook food. Outside the trailer, a full propane tank sat ready to supply heat to the freezing cabin. Yet, for reasons no one could understand, none of it had been used. It was as if every chance for survival had been lost in some kind of silent despair. Just a day later, police searching the trails around the trailer found more haunting scenes. Jack Madruga's body was discovered nearly 11 miles away, lying along the road that led back toward the Mercury Montego. It seemed he had tried, in desperation, to make it back to the car, but hadn't the strength to finish the journey through the freezing wilderness. His body had been ravaged by wild animals. Only scattered remains of his final, unfinished trek were left. Not far from Madruga, the police found the skeletal remains of Bill Sterling. Bits of bone and scraps of clothing were spread over a wide area, evidence that Sterling, too, had been torn apart and scattered by forest predators beneath the thick branches. The family's pain deepened when Jack Hewitt's father insisted on searching for his son himself. He was the one to find a section of spine, a pair of jeans, and the familiar shoes of his boy, lying cold and alone in the forest. The next day, police found Hewitt's skull nearby, confirming his identity with dental records. Each discovery brought an end to hope and served as a bitter reminder of the loneliness, helplessness, and confusion the young men endured in their final days. But the greatest mystery, even now, is the fate of Gary Mathias. Despite weeks of searching, no one ever found his body anywhere in the forest. Only Mathias's shoes were discovered in the trailer, next to Ted Weir's body. Many have speculated that Mathias had to swap shoes with Weir when his own feet became swollen from the cold. But no one knows where he went, how long he survived, or where, if ever, he finally fell. To this day, what really happened to the 5 young men from Yuba City on that cold night in late February 1978 remains an enigma that no one has fully explained. The simple truth is that every clue has only added another layer to the mystery, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and sorrow for the community and the investigators. Why would a group of men, by all accounts cautious and not prone to risk, abandon their Mercury Montego, the only thing that could have taken them safely home, and choose instead to walk more than 20 miles through rugged, freezing mountain terrain? The car was intact, not out of gas, not stuck, and showed no sign of mechanical failure. There was no indication they had been forced out in a panic, and no one has ever understood why they would have left in the middle of the night when the temperatures were far below human endurance. But the strangeness didn't stop there. When they finally reached the abandoned trailer in the woods, survival was still within reach. There was untouched food in the cupboards, matches, old newspapers, and books for making a fire, and the propane tank just needed a simple action to heat the whole cabin. Yet, none of them did anything to save themselves. Why did Weir die of cold and hunger beneath 8 blankets, surrounded by the very resources that could have kept the whole group alive for weeks? The role of Gary Mathias makes everything even more tangled. He is the only one never found, leaving behind just his shoes in the trailer, leading many to believe he swapped them with Weir when his feet swelled from the cold. But after that, no one knows where he went. Did he try to find help, search for the others, or simply wander deeper into the forest, vanishing forever in the icy wilderness? Mathias's disappearance has sparked a host of theories about what really happened in those last hours. Some believe the boys were chased that night, by someone or by something, forcing them to flee into the forest in terror. Jack Madruga's mother always insisted her son and his friends had been driven up that mountain road, for there was no reason they would have left the car of their own accord on such a freezing night. Yet, police found no evidence of struggle, violence, or confrontation at the scene to support this theory. Other experts point to the group's mental health and cognitive challenges as a crucial factor in their tragic fate. In extreme situations, fear and confusion might have kept them from recognizing their own opportunities for survival or from knowing how to use the resources available. For most, lighting the propane tank, building a fire, or sharing out food would be obvious, but for these young men, it might have been a challenge beyond their ability. Then there were the details from witnesses that only deepened the mystery. Joseph Jones, a man whose car got stuck on the same mountain road that night, claimed he saw several figures and a woman carrying a baby in the glow of his headlights. Strange noises, whistles, and sudden flashes of light added to the unease. But in the end, these reports brought no breakthrough to the investigation. Some theories went even further, suggesting the boys might have witnessed a fight or confrontation at the basketball game, then were chased into the mountains by strangers. Others noted spent shell casings found near the mountain road, or brought up rumors of aliens or monsters in the deep woods. Yet, no solid evidence for any of these ideas ever emerged. Perhaps what makes this case so haunting are the eerie similarities to the Dyatlov Pass tragedy in Russia. Both took place in freezing February. Both involved young people who suddenly left a safe shelter at night to cross harsh wilderness, never to return. The bodies found months later, under strange and inexplicable circumstances, only deepened the sense of horror, a bleak modern tragedy that few want to confront. For decades, the case of the Yuba County Five has been discussed, debated, and returned to over and over again on American television, a wound that has never healed. The victims' families, fathers, mothers, siblings, and closest friends have spent much of their lives searching for answers, clinging to the fragile hope that someone, somewhere, still knows the truth of that night. But as the years go by, as each cold winter returns, the pain remains as raw as the day everyone realized the boys would never come home. Perhaps the most heartbreaking part is the sheer helplessness in the face of an unsolvable tragedy, where every effort from the families, the community, and investigators leads only to dead ends. Over the long years of waiting, many have quietly prayed for the boys' souls to find peace, hoping that, even if their story is never solved, they have found rest somewhere far from the fear, cold, and loneliness of that forest so many years ago. Thank you for watching until the end of the video. If you found these mysteries fascinating, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our upcoming journeys. See you in the next video.